So on WGSO 990 AM here in New Orleans, there is a show that airs every Thursday night called Liberty or Lockdown. Of course, it started during the pandemic, and these people didn't like the fact that, they had lockdowns. They thought it was violating their liberty to have these lockdowns. And they've continued on their show. The show is also called like Baldy and the Blonde, and the guy who's on the show is also the flaming conservative, the same flaming conservative who claimed, after I called into Jeff's show, he claimed that I was wrong and that the testing for COVID-19 absolutely did cause cases. Like, testing for COVID caused people to get COVID. This is how crazy and kooky these people are. They actually believe, instead of saying, Trump was wrong for saying if you have more testing, you have more cases, instead of just saying, yeah, maybe he was wrong about that particular point, he's like, nope, he's right. COVID is caused in part by testing for COVID. That just shows you how dumb these people are. But, we're talking about DEI. One of the other things that conservatives don't understand is not just DEI, but critical race theory, CRT. They don't understand it, and they don't know what it means. They don't know what it is. So we're going to listen to this commercial that airs like every commercial break on that Liberty or Lockdown show, and we will talk about all the ways in which it's wrong.
Some people in the Louisiana legislature want to permit the teaching of critical race theory in our state.
Okay, the only place that critical race theory is being taught in any state, be it Louisiana or any other state in this nation, is law school. Because critical race theory is a legal concept that is brought up in law school. It's not being taught in kindergarten. It's not being taught in 5th grade. It's only being taught in law school. So let's continue.
That theory says that if 2 babies are born today, 1 black baby and 1 white baby, that the white baby is the mean, racist oppressor of the black baby, and that the black baby is the weak, incompetent victim of the white baby.
Nope, sorry, you're wrong. That is not what critical race theory says, not one bit. Again, critical race theory is something that's taught in law school, and it's meant to be something that goes over the reasons why we have racial disparities. And it specifically is not saying that black people are inferior just because they're black people. They are specifically stating that it has nothing to do with any inferiority of black people. It has everything to do with the fact that we have racist policies that are put into place that make it harder, that put obstacles in the way of black people trying to achieve success. It's a more, complex explanation of privilege. Whereas, let's say 2 people were running a race, and typically when 2 people run a race, they have the same course, it's the same length, it's the same conditions. But what critical race theory helps to explain is that the reason why a black person might have less success in this country is not because of any inferiority that we're claiming. It's because of the obstacles that this society puts in the way of marginalized and oppressed people, i.e. the oppression of those people is what's causing the people to have a harder time. It's forcing them to do more work to get the same results. And it doesn't mean that the person who is, on the more privileged side is more adept. They could be less adept and still reach the same levels. It doesn't mean that the person is inept who is having the obstacles put in their way. It means that, they're having obstacles in the way, so they have more stuff to deal with. So let's take that race, for example, like a foot race between a black person and a white person, hypothetically speaking or whatever. Let's say the white person in this situation would have a straight course with no hills and nothing in their way. Meanwhile, the black person in the same situation would have curves in the track, bumps in the track, hills, have to go up and down hills, would have to jump over hurdles, and various other things to be able to get to the finish line. That's basically, in a nutshell, what privilege is. That basically, in a nutshell, is what CRT tries to answer. Not the BS that is being stated in this commercial.
Unbelievable. Those people say that the innocent white baby by his DNA is bad and racist, and the black baby by his DNA is a weak victim who can never succeed. Only a total fool would believe or accept this idiocy.
Well, he's right, but he's wrong about why he's right. Because only a complete idiot and fool would believe what they're saying about critical race theory. Nobody is saying that black people can't be successful in this country, in this state. Nobody is saying that. Not one bit. We're saying that there are obstacles that are put in the way of black people in this country because we have racist policies, and we have racist policing, we have various other things that go on. Like, for example, unarmed black men versus unarmed white men in this country. If you're an unarmed black person in this country, you're 3.5 times more likely to be shot by the police than an unarmed white person. That has nothing to do with the person's DNA. It has to do with the fact that the people who are in police are more likely to draw a gun and shoot a black person compared to white people. And it doesn't say anything about the race of the cops either, because the cop could be black, the cop could be white. There's nothing in that statistic that mentions the race or the genetics or the DNA of the cop doing the shooting. It just at the end of the day says that if you're a black person, you're 3.5 times more likely to be shot by a cop as an unarmed person than a white person who is unarmed. Simple as that. It's a very simple concept. It says nothing about the why or that the person is incapable or that the person is inept or that the person on the other side, that white people specifically are racist because of that. Now, we are living in a society that promotes and supports white supremacy. And if you know this and do nothing to stop it, then you're complicit with white supremacists. And at that point, I don't see a moral difference between somebody who sees white supremacy and doesn't try and fix it and someone who is a white supremacist themselves.
Yet they want to teach this foolishness to Louisiana's young people.
No, we don't. Not one bit. Again, critical race theory is something that belongs in law school, and that's where it should be taught. Now, do we want perhaps to teach people about, privilege and about how black people might have more difficulty in life because of the fact that, they're treated unfairly in this country, and go over how racism set black people back, how Jim Crow laws set black people back and gave them more hurdles that they had to deal with, how the destruction of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma eliminated wealth, stole wealth from black families in that area, how redlining prevented black people from buying into good neighborhoods and stuck them into poor neighborhoods because we were only going to allow black people to live in certain areas. Should we learn about that and then maybe have people understand that all of these reasons that we're seeing, all of these things that have been done in the history of this nation, that, maybe that is causing us to, have disproportionate levels of success amongst black people and white people? I think it's a reasonable thing to look at. But it doesn't say at all that black people are inept simply because they're black. It doesn't say anything about the ineptness of black people at all. It's not a matter of ineptness. If we're running a race and you tie a 20-pound ankle weight to my leg, I'm not going to be able to catch up to you unless I put in more effort than you. I would have to put in more effort to be able to succeed. Where you, if you don't have the ankle weight tied to you, don't have to put as much effort to succeed. That's what privilege is about. That's what, ultimately what they would discuss at law school levels, what CRT is about. But these people want to complain if we dare say we had slavery in this country and that made it harder for black people to generate familiar wealth, generational wealth amongst their family. We had racism in this country and Jim Crow in this country. So that made it harder for black people in this country to grow their wealth and have generational wealth. We had redlining in this country, and that made it impossible, or harder, at least, for black people to grow generational wealth. Centuries of oppression and marginalization of black people has made it harder for black people to succeed in this country. Again, it doesn't mean that they won't. To quote Jim Scalzi, an author, one of the books he has, Red Shirts, basically it's a comparison of video games. Like a white person automatically starts the game of life on an easier mode than a black person does, all other things being equal. So, you might have, less obstacles thrown in your way in the course of playing the video game of life. Does that mean that the white person is automatically guaranteed to succeed? Nope, not one bit. You might be very inept as a white person, and despite the fact that you're playing on the game on easy mode, you still might not be able to figure out the controls. You still might not be able to succeed and do well in life. But it's not going to be because of your race that's preventing you. It's other things that are preventing you from doing that. Meanwhile, the black person who starts the game of life on a harder level may very well be able to win the game and be successful. But the effort that individual has to put in, let's say we're playing Mario and we have to save the princess. The white person's not automatically going to save the princess just because they're white. They might be inept at the game. The black person isn't going to automatically fail at saving the princess just because he's black, but he's going to have to play a harder game to do it. Now, people who can understand that might be able to then understand, well, why is it that we're always saving a princess? But that's like 102 level. That's like maybe sophomore level privilege and discrimination or whatever. So, and they're not ready for topics of intersectionality if they listen to these types of commercials and believe them to be true. 250 kilo says, lack of equity. Exactly, a lack of equity. Let's continue.
Please call your legislator today and raise some sand.
Raise some sand. Go raise some sand, which I guess means cause some trouble. Stir up some things. Of course, he's telling them to raise some sand over something that is an untrue statement. Because again, we're not saying all those things, but it's very easy to tear down a straw man. So what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment of this stupid little commercial, or do you think they're spot on? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like the video, share, subscribe to the channel, and unless you're a Nazi or support this guy, whatever he's saying, have a good day.